God's message, trust my timing when you feel everyone is passing you by. Chapter 1. The heavy noise of digital finish lines. The room is quiet, perhaps entirely silent, yet your mind is deafened by a relentless, invisible roar. It happens in the simplest of moments. You are sitting alone with your morning coffee or lying awake in the stillness of the midnight hours. You reach for your device, the glowing screen illuminating the shadows, and within seconds the quiet sanctuary of your life is violently invaded by the triumphs of everyone else. Here, in the landscape of April 2026, we find ourselves navigating an era of unprecedented hyper-acceleration. The world is moving at a breakneck speed, and the digital square demands that you not only keep up, but that you consistently broadcast your arrival. Every swipe of the finger, every scroll down the timeline, delivers a concentrated dose of someone else's finish line. You see the sudden career elevations, the unexpected financial windfalls, the pristine relationship announcements, and the grand unveilings of ministries or businesses that seem to have blossomed overnight. The algorithm does not show you the struggle, it only presents the polished, color-corrected trophy. It is a relentless parade of victory laps happening directly inside your living room, curated to perfection. And as you watch them sprint past you, a familiar, heavy sinking feeling takes residence in your chest. It feels as though a starter pistol was fired for your generation, and somehow you were the only one left standing at the starting line. You look at your own life, the prayers that seem to hit a brass ceiling and bounce back, the visions that remain firmly locked in the drafting phase, the deep desires of your heart that remain perpetually unfulfilled, and a terrifying question begins to whisper in the dark: did God forget me? This is the crushing weight of the digital finish line. It is a modern psychological and spiritual crisis where we are forced to measure our raw, unedited waiting rooms against the highly produced premiere nights of our peers. To understand the agony of this season, we must first unmask the nature of the noise. The pain you are experiencing is not necessarily born from jealousy, it is born from a profound sense of disorientation. You know that you carry a calling. You can feel the weight of a divine assignment resting on your spirit. You have done the work in the shadows, you have remained faithful in the small things, and yet the needle refuses to move. When your internal conviction does not match your external reality, and the external realities of everyone around you seem to be exploding with favor, the mind spirals into self-condemnation. The enemy of your soul thrives in this specific corridor of vulnerability. He uses the digital noise as an acoustic amplifier for your deepest insecurities. He points to the 24-year-old millionaire, the peer who just published their third book, or the colleague who secured the promotion you had been praying for, and he twists the narrative. He tells you that their acceleration is undeniable proof of your stagnation. He whispers that your delay is actually a denial, a quiet rejection from a creator who has simply moved on to more promising candidates. But what you're witnessing on those screens is not the full spectrum of reality. It is a profound visual distortion. We have collectively forgotten how to differentiate between the harvest and the planting. When you look at someone else's success, you are looking at their autumn. You are witnessing the moment the fruit is finally pulled from the branch. What the timeline willfully obscures are the brutal winters they endured, the years where the soil was barren, the silent nights of weeping, and the relentless, exhausting work of weeding their own spiritual gardens. You are comparing your root system, which is currently buried deep in the dirt, expanding in the dark, unseen by human eyes, to their visible canopy. And because roots are not photogenic, because the process of digging a foundation offers no immediate applause, you mistakenly believe you are failing. The truth is much more complex and infinitely more beautiful. Human souls, especially those destined for profound impact, do not develop at the speed of fiber optic internet. Greatness cannot be downloaded, wisdom cannot be streamed. The deepest, most enduring works of God in the human spirit require the agonizing, beautiful friction of time. In this hyper-connected age, the greatest rebellion you can stage is to quiet the noise of comparison and embrace the holy obscurity of the wait. When the noise of the world screams that you are falling behind, you must learn to listen to the eternal whispers of your soul, reminding you that you are safely hidden in the palm of the architect. The feeling of being passed by is merely an optical illusion created by the speed of the world around you. God is not bound by the frantic pacing of April 2026. He is not worried about you missing out on a trend, nor is he intimidated by the rapid ascensions of those around you. He is crafting a masterpiece, and masterpieces are never rushed for the sake of the gallery. As we step deeper into the architecture of this weight, you must first give yourself permission to log off the emotional treadmill of the race. Breathe deeply, acknowledge the ache of the delay, but refuse to let it define your worth. The heavy noise of the digital finish line will always be there, shouting for your attention. But the voice of the Creator, the one currently pouring the invisible concrete of your future, is speaking in the quiet. Your timeline is not broken. Your clock has not stopped. The race you think you are losing is one you were never meant to run. The silence you are currently enduring is not a void. It is the sacred space where your capacity is being enlarged to hold the immense weight of what is coming. Chapter 2. Blinded by the sprint, visual distortion versus true spiritual progress. We are a civilization intoxicated by speed. In the relentless rhythm of our modern era, velocity is worshipped as the ultimate metric of success. We celebrate the youngest billionaires, the overnight sensations, and the rapid ascensions. We have been conditioned to believe that if you're not moving fast, you are not moving at all. Yet, when we apply this physical metric to the spiritual realm, we fall victim to a profound visual distortion. We become blinded by the sprint, mistaking the frantic accumulation of earthly milestones for true spiritual progress. To navigate your season of waiting, you must first unlearn the mechanics of the race. When you observe your peers accelerating, securing titles, launching platforms, and acquiring assets at breakneck speeds, your eyes deceive you. In the material world, speed is easily quantified by a stopwatch. In the architecture of the soul, rapid movement is frequently an illusion masking a terrifying fragility. Imagine two vehicles on a highway. One is a lightweight sports car, roaring past at maximum velocity. The other is a heavily armored transport, moving deliberately and steadily. The sports car captures all the attention, but the moment it hits a minor obstacle, it shatters. The transport, built for endurance rather than acceleration, absorbs the impact and continues its journey. Many who appear to be sprinting ahead in life are running on remarkably shallow tracks. They are moving fast because they are carrying no spiritual weight. They possess no deep roots, no tested character, and no resilience forged in the fires of adversity. When you weep over your lack of speed, you're often crying over your lack of fragility. The Creator is not building a sports car in you, He is constructing a fortress, and fortresses cannot be erected overnight. This visual distortion forces us to re-examine our relationship with time itself. To survive the waiting room without losing your mind, you must understand the two distinct concepts of time, chronos and kairos. Chronos is the time of the world. It is chronological, sequential, and quantitative. It is the ticking of the clock, the turning of the calendar pages, and the relentless march of days, months, and years. Chronos is the tyrant that wakes you up in the middle of the night, whispering that you are running out of time. It measures how long you have been stagnant. It is the metric of anxiety, demanding that you reach specific societal checkpoints by a certain age. Kairos, on the other hand, is the time of heaven. It is not measured in seconds, but in seasons. Kairos is qualitative. It is the appointed time, the supreme moment, the pregnant pause before a divine collision. Kairos does not ask, "How long has it been?" Instead, it asks, "Are you ready for the weight of what is next?" The anxiety you feel, the crushing sensation that everyone is passing you by, is born from measuring a Kairos destiny with a Chronos stopwatch. You are evaluating an eternal work using a temporary instrument. God operates exclusively in the realm of Kairos. He is unimpressed by human deadlines and indifferent to the panic of your calendar. When you feel delayed, you are simply experiencing the friction between your Chronos expectations and God's Kairos orchestration. The universe does not owe you an explanation for its timing, but it guarantees perfection when the season finally shifts. True spiritual progress is rarely loud, and it almost never looks like a sprint. It looks like the agonizingly slow transformation of a seed buried in the dark. Above the soil, there is no evidence of life. To the untrained observer, it looks like a grave. But beneath the surface, the seed is breaking open. It is violently pushing roots down into the dirt, anchoring itself to the bedrock, seeking water in the unseen depths. This is not stagnation, this is the most vital, aggressive form of growth. If the seed were to sprout prematurely, bypassing the dark work of the root system, the first strong wind would destroy it. Your current season of obscurity is not a punishment for lack of effort, it is a divine protection of your root system. God is keeping you hidden because your character is still catching up to your calling. We must shift our focus from competing in an earthly race to engaging in a personal walk with the Creator. A race implies competitors, a finite finish line, and a scarcity of rewards. A walk implies companionship, a continuous journey, and an abundance of grace. When you realize that you are not competing against the people on your digital feeds, the panic subsides. Their finish line has absolutely nothing to do with your starting point. You are running on a custom-built track, designed with specific hurdles to break your ego and specific rest stops to heal your soul. To break the illusion of the sprint, you must stop looking sideways at the speed of others and start looking inward at the depth of your own transformation. Are you becoming more patient? Are you shedding the need for external validation? Is your empathy deepening? Is your trust in the unseen growing stronger? Do not allow the frantic speed of the world to dictate the rhythm of your soul. The delays you are experiencing are not detours, they are the path. Trust the silent, invisible work of Kairos. The master builder is laying stones that will outlast the fleeting sprints of those around you. The speed of your arrival matters far less than the strength of the foundation you bring with you when you finally step through the door. Chapter 3. The Sound of the Dig. Why Silence is a Foundation. There is a specific kind of agony that accompanies the silence of God. You have prayed the prayers, you have fasted, you have done the necessary work, and you have stood at the edge of your faith, calling out into the void for a sign. And in return you receive nothing but the echoing quiet of your own voice. In our human understanding, we equate silence with absence. If someone is not speaking, we assume they have left the room. If the heavens are quiet, we deduce that the Creator has abandoned the project. But in the realm of divine architecture, silence does not mean the work has stopped. Silence is the sound of the dig. To understand the nature of your current waiting period, you must look at the mechanics of building something monumental. When a contractor prepares to build a simple, single-story house, the foundation work is minimal. The ground is leveled, a shallow layer of concrete is poured, and within weeks the wooden frame begins to rise into the sky. It is visible, it is fast. It is immediately rewarding to the observer. But when an architect designs a towering skyscraper, a structure meant to pierce the clouds, withstand hurricane-force winds, and carry the weight of thousands of people, the process is radically different. For months, sometimes for years, there is absolutely no upward trajectory. Passers-by look at the construction site and see nothing but a massive, chaotic crater in the ground. Heavy machinery violently tears into the earth, removing dirt, rock, and debris. It looks like destruction, it looks like a mess, it looks like the opposite of progress. Yet, this downward excavation is the most critical phase of the entire project. The builders are searching for the bedrock. They must dig deep enough to pour steel and concrete into the immovable crust of the earth. Because the fundamental law of architecture dictates this reality, the height of your eventual elevation is entirely dependent upon the depth of your hidden foundation. If you are currently experiencing a prolonged season of silence, it is because God has looked at the blueprint of your destiny and realized that a shallow foundation will not hold the weight of your calling. You are not being ignored, you are being excavated. The silence you hear is the heavy machinery of heaven removing the debris from your soul. God is digging out your pride. He is removing your reliance on external validation. He is excavating your impatience, your insecurities, and your need for control. It feels like you are losing ground rather than gaining it, but this spiritual digging is the only way to reach the solid bedrock of true faith. We can also view this season through the lens of high art. Consider the breathtaking masterpieces of the Renaissance, those grand, enduring canvases that evoke a sense of profound stability and awe. The most captivating technique used by the master painters was chiaroscuro, the intense, dramatic contrast between piercing light and deep, enveloping shadow. If you look closely at these masterpieces, you will notice that the focal point, the brilliant light, only holds its power because it is surrounded by a muted, earthy, desaturated darkness. A painting composed entirely of bright, blinding colors lacks depth. It is flat and overexposed. It is the heavy, quiet shadows that give the light its context, its shape, and its meaning. God is the master artist of your life. Right now, He is painting the shadows, the silence, the waiting, the obscurity. These are the deep, earthy tones being brushed onto the canvas of your spirit. You may wish for nothing but the brilliant light of success and breakthrough, but the Creator knows that without the profound depth of the shadows, your story would lack the necessary contrast to be a true masterpiece. The dark seasons are not a mistake on the canvas, they are the deliberate strokes of a genius, ensuring that when the light of your appointed time finally breaks, it will be breathtaking. Therefore, you must learn to change your relationship with the quiet. When you feel the urge to panic, when the anxiety of being left behind threatens to choke your peace, remind yourself of the construction site, remind yourself of the canvas. The lack of visible upward progress is not a sign of failure. It is the definitive proof that you are being prepared to carry something massive. If God were to elevate you right now with a shallow foundation, the very blessing you are begging for would crush you. The platform would destroy your character. The wealth would corrupt your heart. The influence would break your mind. The silence is a shield of mercy, protecting you from a systemic collapse. Do not rush the dig. Do not attempt to fill the hole with cheap, temporary materials just to feel like you are making progress. Let the architect finish his work. Endure the discomfort of the excavation. Sit patiently in the heavy shadows of the underpainting. The bedrock is being established. The foundation is being secured. And when the time is perfectly right, when your character is finally heavy enough to sustain the blessing, the silence will break. The upward build will begin. And because of the agonizing, silent work done in the dark, the structure of your life will stand unshakable for generations to come. Chapter 4. The Danger of Premature Elevation. There is a universal human impulse to rip open the doors of our future before they are unlocked. In the agonizing stretch of the waiting room, we often find ourselves negotiating with heaven, begging for the immediate release of the promises we feel we are owed. We ask for the platform, the promotion, the relationship, or the financial breakthrough, convinced that if we just had the opportunity now, our lives would be complete. But what we consistently fail to calculate is the immense, crushing weight of the answered prayer. We romanticize elevation. We view success, influence, and abundance as weightless gifts floating down from heaven to make our lives easier. The spiritual reality, however, is that every true blessing possesses a massive gravitational pull. To be elevated is to be handed a profound burden of responsibility. Leadership requires the endurance of constant criticism. Wealth demands rigorous stewardship and ethical fortitude. Influence necessitates a hyper-awareness of how your words and actions shape others. If you are handed these heavy realities before your internal infrastructure is fully built, the blessing does not liberate you, it crushes you. To understand the peril of premature elevation, consider the strict maintenance protocols and mechanics of high-capacity energy storage. If you bypass safety measures and flood a battery with a sudden massive surge of high-voltage power before its internal thermal management system is prepared to handle the load, the result is not peak performance. The result is a catastrophic fire. The system is completely destroyed by the very energy it was designed to hold. The human soul operates on the exact same principle. When you are given a massive surge of power, visibility, or wealth before your character has developed the internal thermal management to handle the friction, the result is a systemic spiritual collapse. We see the smoke from these collapses every day in our modern culture. The landscape is littered with the remnants of leaders, artists, and visionaries who experienced explosive overnight acceleration only to suffer devastating public failures, moral compromises, or severe mental health crises shortly after. The energy of their success burned them alive because their character was not yet thick enough to contain the voltage. We also see this principle vividly reflected in the volatility of global financial markets. When a currency or an asset experiences a rapid synthetic spike in valuation without the grounding stability of a physical reserve, such as a gold standard backing it up, it creates an unsustainable bubble. The fiscal risk becomes immense. The market may celebrate the sudden soaring numbers for a brief season, but because the valuation is built on air rather than substance, reality inevitably catches up. The bubble bursts, and the resulting crash leaves behind widespread devastation. Your character is your gold standard. It is the intrinsic, unchangeable value that backs up the public currency of your life. If your public profile, your career trajectory, or your social standing artificially inflates faster than the hidden reserves of your character, you are living in a spiritual bubble. It is only a matter of time before the pressures of life audit your soul. When the audit comes and the world discovers that your public elevation is not backed by private integrity, the fall is steep and unforgiving. This is why the architect deliberately orchestrates divine delays. The waiting room is God's market stabilization program for your life. When God says not yet, He is not punishing you. He is actively protecting you from the devastation of a premature surge. He is looking at the current capacity of your heart and realizing that if He gave you the stage you are begging for today, the applause would turn into an idol that destroys your humility. If He gave you the wealth you are praying for today, the comfort would anesthetize your reliance on Him. He is insulating you from the crushing weight of a destiny you are not yet strong enough to carry. We must learn to view the delay not as a penalty, but as a profound act of divine mercy. The most dangerous thing that can happen to a person is to be handed their dream before they are ready for it. To arrive at the summit without having endured the brutal conditioning of the climb means you will not have the lung capacity to survive the altitude. You will gasp for air, panicked and exhausted, unable to enjoy the view you fought so hard to see. Therefore, do not despise the slow, tedious days of obscurity. Do not attempt to force the locks on doors that God has firmly bolted shut. The delay is the very mechanism securing your future survival. God is holding back the voltage until your internal systems are fully prepared. He is aggressively building up your gold reserves in secret. Trust the safety protocols of heaven. The promotion will come, the door will open, and the season will shift. But when it finally does, because you allowed the delay to finish its perfect work in you, you will not burn out. You will not crash. You will stand firm under the weight of the blessing, fully equipped to shine without being consumed. Forged in the shadows, the character of the kept. If the waiting room is a construction site where your foundation is poured, it is simultaneously a blacksmith's forge where your soul is tempered. The shadows of obscurity, the long, quiet seasons where your name is not spoken in important rooms and your efforts seem largely invisible, are not empty voids. They are highly active, deeply pressurized environments designed by the Creator to manufacture the specific character traits required to sustain your coming elevation. When a blacksmith works a piece of raw iron, the metal must be subjected to intense heat, violently struck against an anvil, and plunged into cold water. You are not being punished in the shadows. You are being prepared. You are the kept, those whom God intentionally hides away in the dark, protecting them from premature exposure while He hammers out the impurities of their character. To carry the heavy mantle of your destiny, the superficial layers of your identity must be burned away. In this sacred forge of obscurity, 3 indispensable pillars of character are meticulously crafted: radical humility, unshakable resilience, and deep empathy. The purification of radical humility. Humility is often misunderstood as self-deprecation, but true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. In an era where digital culture demands relentless self-promotion, the human ego is naturally inflated. We crave the dopamine hit of external validation. We want the applause, the followers, and the immediate recognition for our talents. The shadows are where the ego goes to die. When you consistently produce excellent work in the dark and receive no recognition, when you watch less capable individuals receive the accolades you have bled for, your motives are aggressively audited. The forge asks a piercing question: will you still do the work if no one ever claps? In the wait, you are stripped of your reliance on the crowd. You learn to find your identity not in what you achieve, but in who you belong to. Radical humility is forged when you finally surrender your desperate need to be seen and find absolute peace in simply being faithful. By the time God finally opens the door to the public stage, you will not be intoxicated by the applause, because your heart will have been satisfied in the silence. The iron of unshakable resilience. The future that God has designed for you is not a frictionless utopia. Greater influence invites greater warfare. Higher levels of leadership demand higher thresholds for pain, criticism, and betrayal. If your spirit is easily broken by the minor inconveniences of today, how will you survive the heavy artillery of tomorrow? Resilience cannot be downloaded from a textbook. It must be hammered into the muscle memory of your soul through the repetition of disappointment and recovery. Every time you face a closed door and choose to keep walking, your spiritual endurance thickens. Every time your expectations are shattered and you choose to worship through the grief, your emotional armor is reinforced. You are learning how to absorb a blow without losing your footing. The delays and the setbacks you are currently lamenting are the exact mechanisms God is using to temper your steel. When the inevitable storms of life hit the towering structure of your future, it will not collapse because its beams were stress-tested in the shadows long before the wind ever blew. The vocabulary of deep empathy. Perhaps the most beautiful and painful trait forged in the shadows is deep empathy. Pain is a universal human language, but it is a dialect that can only be learned through immersion. If your ascent to the top were rapid and effortless, you would look down at those struggling in the valley with impatience and judgment. You would assume their stagnation was a result of laziness or lack of faith. But because you have been made to wait, because you have tasted the bitter ash of dashed hopes and sat in the suffocating silence of unanswered prayers, your heart is broken open. The waiting room gives you the vocabulary to heal others. When you finally step into your appointed season, you will not be a leader who merely shouts directives from the peak. You will be a shepherd who knows how to walk into the valley and bandage the bleeding. Because you have spent time in the quiet, you develop an ear for the eternal soul whispers of those around you. You will be able to hear the silent cries of the broken, the anxious, and the left behind, because you once spoke their exact language. Your delay is deeply purposeful because it is entirely tied to the people you are eventually called to rescue. The shadows are not a grave, they are a sanctuary. Do not resist the hammer, do not run from the heat. Allow the blacksmith to finish his work, the character being forged in you right now. The humility, the resilience, and the empathy is the very currency you will need to purchase the impact of your future. You are being kept safe in the dark so that when you are finally brought into the light, you will not blind people with your ego, but guide them with your grace. Chapter 6. Strategic Redirections When Closed Doors Save You. There are few sounds in the human experience more devastating than the sharp, final click of a closing door. We spend months, sometimes years, walking down a specific hallway of life, pouring our energy, our prayers, and our profound hopes into a single destination. We approach the threshold with anticipation, only to find the handle locked, the entry denied, and our meticulously crafted plans shattered against the wood. Our immediate visceral reaction to a closed door is grief. We interpret rejection as a brutal indictment of our worth. When the job offer is rescinded, when the relationship abruptly ends, or when the funding for the dream falls through, the mind spirals into a dark, familiar interrogation. What did I do wrong? Am I not good enough? Have I been disqualified? This agonizing response is completely natural, but it is fundamentally flawed. We evaluate the closed door entirely from our limited, earthbound perspective. We assume that because we desired the room behind the door, the room must have been good for us. To decode divine delays, you must learn to reframe your understanding of the word no. A definitive no from heaven is not a rejection. It is a strategic redirection. God is the ultimate master strategist. He possesses an unobstructed, panoramic view of your entire timeline, past, present, and future. You can only see the handle in front of you. He sees the hidden traps, the structural failures, and the toxic environments lying in wait on the other side. When he abruptly slams a door in your face, he is forcefully altering your trajectory to save your life. Consider the profound specificity of your own design. You are not a mass-produced product. You carry a highly distinct spiritual DNA, complete with unique sensitivities, specific strengths, and a precise calling. Because you are a highly specialized instrument, you cannot be plugged into just any environment. If the emotional or spiritual voltage of a room does not match your internal wiring, you will short-circuit. God knows the exact ecosystem required for your spiritual DNA to flourish. He also knows the environments that will quietly suffocate your soul. Often we desperately bang on the doors of institutions, relationships, or social circles that, if they were to grant us entry, would demand that we dilute our identity to survive. We pray to enter rooms where we would eventually have to mute the eternal whispers of our own soul just to fit in. God loves you too much to let you succeed in an environment that will eventually destroy your character. The door remains locked because the room behind it is toxic to your specific destiny. The most insidious threat to your ultimate calling is rarely a blatantly terrible choice. The greatest threat is usually a good opportunity. When we are exhausted from waiting, we become incredibly vulnerable to the seduction of compromise. We see an open door that looks somewhat similar to what we asked for. It isn't perfect, but it offers immediate relief from the agonizing delay. We try to force our way in, willing to settle for a good idea rather than wait for the God-ordained reality. In these moments, a divine closed door is an act of aggressive grace. God will shut the door on a good opportunity to forcibly preserve you for the great one. He will block your access to an okay relationship to save you for a profound partnership. He will collapse a mediocre business venture to ensure you are available when the monumental assignment finally arrives. Furthermore, we must account for the unseen turbulence that God is actively steering us away from. We mourn the missed flight, completely unaware that the plane we were begging to board was destined to crash. We weep over the loss of a promotion, entirely blind to the fact that the company's leadership was about to implode under the weight of ethical corruption. We cry over the sudden departure of a mentor, not realizing that their continued presence would have eventually manipulated our vision and stifled our independence. You are being actively shielded from storms you do not have the capacity to navigate. The closed door is the barrier keeping the chaos out of your life. It is time to change your posture at the threshold. How much time and emotional energy have you wasted staring at a door that God has definitively locked? You have stood in the hallway, bloody in your knuckles, begging for entry into a room that was never meant for you. Stop banging on the wood. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and wipe the tears of rejection from your eyes. A locked door is merely a directional arrow. It forces you to turn around and observe the rest of the hallway. It demands that you keep walking, searching for the threshold that has been specifically carved out for your frame. When you finally arrive at the door that was engineered for your destiny, you will not have to force the handle. You will not have to manipulate the lock or beg for entry. It will open naturally, and the environment inside will perfectly accommodate the full, unfiltered weight of who you were created to be. Until then, trust the redirect. Find peace in the rejection. Thank the architect for the doors he had the mercy to lock. Chapter 7. The Masterpieces of Time, Historical Echoes of Waiting. When you are trapped in the claustrophobic grip of a delayed promise, it is incredibly easy to believe that your suffering is utterly unique. The isolation of the waiting room convinces you that you are an anomaly, a forgotten glitch in the divine system. But if you step back and observe the grand tapestry of human history, a profound pattern emerges from the shadows. The greatest figures to ever walk the earth, those who left an indelible mark on humanity and altered the course of history, were all graduates of the waiting room. Their lives were not characterized by overnight success. They were defined by agonizing, protracted seasons of obscurity. By studying the historical echoes of waiting, we uncover a vital truth. A massive destiny requires a massive incubation. We can look to the ancient texts, to narratives painted in the deep, earthy tones of endurance and the sharp, contrasting light of sudden breakthrough to understand the mechanics of our own delay. The anointed fugitive, David in the cave. Consider the life of David. As a mere teenager, a shepherd boy smelling of the fields, he was pulled before a prophet and anointed with oil to be the next king of a nation. It was a moment of profound, undeniable spiritual elevation. The promise was spoken. The destiny was sealed. If this were a modern narrative, the very next chapter would feature David storming the palace and claiming his throne. But the divine timeline is not a Hollywood script. Following his grand anointing, David was not handed a crown, he was sent back to the sheep. For years he languished in the gap between the promise and the payoff. Even after stepping into the public eye by defeating a giant, his reward was not the throne, but a target on his back. The current king, consumed by jealousy, hunted David like an animal. The anointed king of the nation was reduced to a fugitive, hiding in the cold, cavernous depths of the cave of Adullam. Imagine the psychological torment. He possessed the calling, he had the anointing, yet his reality was a desaturated palette of dirt, fear, and exile. He was surrounded not by courtiers, but by a militia of the broken, the indebted, and the discontented. Yet, the cave of Adullam was not a grave for David's destiny. It was the crucible of his leadership. God could not put David on the throne immediately because a boy who only knows how to lead sheep does not know how to govern broken men. In the shadows of the cave, David learned radical restraint. He learned how to marshal resources in a famine. He learned how to spare his enemies when he had the power to destroy them. The delay was stripping away his youthful arrogance and replacing it with the heavy, unshakable resilience required of a sovereign. When the timing was finally perfect, David emerged from the shadows not as a vengeful tyrant, but as a shepherd king whose lineage would echo into eternity. The dreamer's descent, Joseph in the pit. We see an equally dramatic masterclass of timing in the life of Joseph. As a young man, he was given vivid, undeniable visions of his future elevation. He saw leaders bowing to him. He saw a destiny of immense global influence. But the moment he articulated his dream, his descent began. Joseph's trajectory to the top was a brutal, decade-long plunge to the bottom. He was betrayed by his own flesh and blood, violently thrown into a pit and sold into foreign slavery. Just as he began to rebuild his life with integrity in a new land, he was falsely accused of a horrific crime and thrown into the deepest, darkest dungeon of Egypt. For over 10 years, the dreamer was locked in a nightmare. From a purely human perspective, his life was a catastrophic failure. The door to his destiny had not just been closed, it had been barricaded and buried. He was forgotten by the people he helped, abandoned to the heavy silence of the prison walls. But God was actively utilizing the delay. The visions of Joseph's youth were true, but his teenage character was wildly unequipped to handle the geopolitical power of Egypt. In the house of Potiphar, A slave learned the intricate administration of a sprawling estate. In the prison, a convict learned how to manage the psychology of desperate men. God was quietly weaving the geopolitical, economic, and administrative skills Joseph would need to save a continent from starvation. The explosive power of the appointed time. The most breathtaking aspect of these historical echoes is the sheer velocity of the breakthrough when the season finally shifts. God will make you wait for a decade, and then He will alter your entire reality in a single afternoon. For Joseph, the years of silent, agonizing preparation culminated in one explosive day. A pharaoh had a dream. The cupbearer remembered the Hebrew prisoner, and within 24 hours, Joseph was pulled from the dungeon, shaved, clothed in fine linen, and elevated to the second highest seat of power in the known world. The delay was perfectly synchronized with a global agricultural crisis. If Joseph had been freed a year earlier, he would have likely fled back to his homeland and remained a shepherd. The extended wait ensured he was exactly where he needed to be at the precise moment the world required his specific genius. Your story is echoing these ancient halls. When you feel trapped in the cave of Adullam or forgotten in an Egyptian prison, you must remember that you are in elite company. The darkness surrounding you is the same chiaroscuro shadow that framed the greatest leaders in history. The profound depth of your current suffering is the exact measure of the monumental impact you are being prepared to make. Do not misinterpret your location. The cave is not your final destination, it is your training ground. The prison is not your burial site, it is your university. When the hands of God's clock finally strike the appointed hour, your emergence will be sudden, your foundation will be impregnable, and the world will marvel at the masterpiece that was quietly forged in the dark. Chapter 8. The biology of trust, escaping the burnout epidemic. We often compartmentalize our existence, treating our spiritual journey and our physical bodies as two entirely separate entities. We believe that the anxiety of waiting is merely a condition of the mind or a trial of the soul, disconnected from the flesh and bone that carries us through the world. But the Creator designed you as an integrated masterpiece. What the soul endures, the body absorbs. When you constantly fight against the divine timing of your life, the toll is not just spiritual, it is deeply, dangerously biological. To fully grasp the necessity of trusting God's clock, we must examine the physical wreckage left behind by our modern obsession with speed. As we analyze the sociological and psychological landscape of April 2026, a chilling picture emerges. We are a society running on fumes. The global workforce and mental health analytics from this year paint the portrait of a civilization in systemic distress. Approximately 78% of young adult professionals report experiencing chronic achievement fatigue. Digging deeper into the pathology of this exhaustion reveals that 64% cite peer comparison on digital platforms as the primary catalyst for their distress. Furthermore, the pressure to arrive early is disproportionately fracturing communities, with minority professionals reporting a staggering 72% rate of severe anxiety over missing perceived societal milestones. This is not just data, it is an epidemic of the soul manifesting as an epidemic of the body. Humanity is attempting to force outcomes on a synthetic timeline, and our biology is violently rejecting the effort. When you wake up every morning and immediately flood your mind with the curated, highly saturated finish lines of your peers, your brain does not perceive this as harmless information. It interprets the gap between their success and your current reality as a threat to your survival. Your amygdala sounds the alarm, and your endocrine system responds by flooding your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. You are thrust into a chronic state of fight or flight. Your heart rate elevates, your breathing becomes shallow, and your body braces for an impact that never physically comes. When you live in this state of perpetual urgency, obsessing over how to manufacture your own breakthrough, manipulating circumstances to open locked doors, and panicking over the ticking clock of Chronos, your internal systems are scorched. The physical results of this spiritual rebellion are devastating. Chronic insomnia, adrenal fatigue, autoimmune flare-ups, and systemic burnout are the inevitable destinations of a life lived entirely in the fast lane of human striving. You become a hollow shell, desperately trying to paint the exterior of your life with bright, vibrant colors, while the interior structure is crumbling into dust. In contrast, trusting divine timing is not merely a comforting psychological exercise, it is a literal biological reset. When you choose to surrender the timeline of your life to the architect, a profound physiological shift occurs. The moment you genuinely accept that you're not behind, that God is not ignoring you, and that the delay is a protective mechanism, the alarm bells in your brain begin to silence. The parasympathetic nervous system, the network responsible for rest and digest, is activated. Cortisol levels plummet, heart rates stabilize, the neural pathways that were tangled in knots of anxiety begin to smooth out. Trusting God introduces a deep, stabilizing rhythm back into your biology. Imagine visualizing your internal state through the lens of a classic, masterful painting. A life driven by comparison and frantic acceleration is loud, visually chaotic, and painfully overexposed. It is exhausting to look at and impossible to sustain. But a life anchored in divine trust resembles a beautifully structured, muted canvas. It is characterized by a desaturated color palette, deep, grounding blues, stabilizing grays, and rich, earthy browns. It does not scream for attention. It is quiet. It is steady. And within that stable, earthy background, there are sparse, deliberate, warm accents of joy and peace that stand out with breathtaking clarity because they are not competing with the noise. This is the biological and spiritual equilibrium that God wants to restore to you. He wants to pull you out of the frantic, brightly lit circus of human striving and invite you into the quiet, beautifully muted sanctuary of His timing. When you stop trying to play God with your own destiny, your physical body is finally allowed to rest. You conserve the immense energy that you were previously wasting on worry, panic, and comparison. This conserved energy is exactly what you will need for the season ahead. The heavy responsibilities, the wider influence, and the profound impact of your coming elevation will require physical and mental stamina. If you arrive at your promised land entirely burned out from the stress of the journey, you will not have the strength to conquer the giants that live there. Therefore, releasing your grip on the timeline is an act of survival. Let the 2026 burnout data serve as a cautionary tale. Refuse to be a statistic of the sprint. When the panic of being left behind begins to rise in your chest, take a slow, deliberate breath. Remind your body that it is safe. Remind your nervous system that the creator of the universe is currently curating your future. Your arrival is guaranteed, but the physical state in which you arrive is determined by your willingness to trust the waiting room today. Give your body the permission to rest in the unwavering certainty of God's perfect timing. Chapter 9. Active waiting, sharpening your tools in the dark. When we hear the word wait, our minds instinctively conjure images of absolute passivity. We picture a sterile doctor's office, sitting in a plastic chair, idly flipping through an outdated magazine while the clock violently ticks away on the wall. We assume that a divine delay requires us to simply sit still, holding our breath, in a state of dormant stagnation until the heavens finally call our name. This is perhaps the most dangerous misconception of the spiritual journey. Divine waiting is never passive, it is intensely active. God's waiting room is not a lounge, it is a workshop. It is a highly specialized training ground where the tools necessary for your future elevation are forged, sharpened, and perfected in the dark. If you treat your season of delay as a time to sleep, you will awaken to an open door that you are entirely unequipped to walk through. The tragedy of many modern lives is not that their opportunity never came, but that when the Kairos moment finally arrived, they had to scramble to get ready, and the door closed before they could step across the threshold. To escape the paralyzing frustration of feeling left behind, you must pivot from passive stagnation to the fierce, deliberate art of active waiting. This requires engaging in 3 critical areas of unseen labor: sharpening your craft, mastering stewardship, and undertaking the brutal, necessary work of deep healing. Sharpening your craft in obscurity. When the stage is unlit and the audience is entirely absent, what are you doing with your gift? If you believe you are called to speak, are you writing and refining your message in the quiet of your room, or are you waiting for a microphone to suddenly appear before you open your mouth? If you are called to build a business, are you studying market dynamics, refining your systems, and learning the tedious mechanics of leadership, or are you just waiting for funding to magically drop into your lap? Think of a master sculptor. Long before the marble is placed in a gallery under the bright, exposing lights, it sits in a dusty, chaotic studio. The sculptor spends thousands of hours chiseling, sanding, and refining the raw stone. If you want the masterpiece of your life to withstand the harsh glare of public attention, you must be willing to endure the tedious, unglamorous friction of the studio. Use this silent season to become undeniably excellent at what you do. When the lights finally turn on, you will not have to get ready. You will simply execute the mastery you developed in the dark, mastering the stewardship of the present. One of the greatest tests of the waiting room is the test of current capacity. We are constantly asking God for more influence, more money, more relationships, more authority. Yet, the divine principle of elevation is intrinsically tied to your current level of stewardship. Why would the architect hand you the blueprints to a skyscraper if you are currently refusing to sweep the floors of your one-bedroom apartment? Why would heaven release profound financial abundance into your life if you are mismanaging the modest paycheck you hold today? Active waiting demands that you look at the resources currently in your hands and manage them with absolute, uncompromising excellence. You must treat your current, seemingly insignificant reality with the same level of respect and discipline that you would apply to your ultimate dream. If you are waiting for a platform of millions, start by serving the 3 people currently in your immediate circle with profound empathy. If you are waiting to lead a massive enterprise, become the most diligent, trustworthy employee in your current unremarkable job. God is watching how you handle the little. Your faithfulness in obscurity is the exact currency required to purchase your future authority. Perhaps the most critical and most painful aspect of active waiting is the surgical work of emotional and spiritual healing. As you travel through the early stages of life, you inevitably accumulate wounds. You gather the debris of betrayal, rejection, childhood trauma, and deeply ingrained insecurities. If you attempt to carry this untreated baggage into your season of elevation, your success will become your destruction. If you do not heal the wounds of your past in the waiting room, you will inevitably bleed on the people in your future. If you step into a position of leadership with unhealed insecurities, you will become a tyrant, using your authority to demand the validation you never received. If you enter a high-level partnership with unhealed betrayal trauma, your paranoia will sabotage the relationship. God uses the quiet isolation of the delay to bring these hidden fractures to the surface. He dims the external noise so you can finally hear the weeping of your own soul. Do not run from this discomfort. Do not try to numb the pain with mindless scrolling or frantic activity. Lean into the surgery. Engage in introspection. Seek wise counsel. Forgive those who broke you, and allow the architect to reset your broken bones. A healed spirit is the only vessel strong enough to carry the pure, uncorrupted weight of a divine calling. The readiness of the kept. Active waiting transforms the agony of the delay into the power of anticipation. When you are aggressively working on your character, your skills, and your healing, you no longer feel like a victim of time. You become a partner in your own preparation. Your earthly clock may look like it is standing still, but your spiritual roots are aggressively expanding in the dark, seeking water, wrapping around the bedrock, and stabilizing your future. Do not waste your waiting room. Pick up your tools. Do the quiet, uncelebrated work. Steward your present reality with radical excellence and allow the Maker to heal the deepest fractures of your heart. If you commit to this active preparation, you will experience a profound internal shift. You will no longer beg for the door to open prematurely, because you will understand that the longer you spend in the workshop, the more undeniable your impact will be when you finally step out. Chapter 10. The Arrival, Crossing the Threshold with Unshakable Roots. After the agonizing excavation of the foundation, after the brutal heat of the forge, and after the long, disorienting walk through hallways of locked doors, the atmosphere finally begins to change. God is not a master of endless delays. He is the author of perfect completions. Eventually, the heavy, desaturated shadows of your waiting room will give way to the piercing, intentional light of your appointed time. But how do you know when the wait is coming to an end? We have been conditioned by cinematic narratives to expect our breakthroughs to arrive with dramatic fanfare, a sudden explosion of luck, a parade of immediate recognition, or a loud, unmistakable voice from heaven. Yet, in the divine economy, the transition from a period of preparation into a period of manifestation is rarely heralded by a trumpet blast. It usually begins with a series of quiet, profoundly subtle internal shifts. To step across the threshold into your new season, you must first learn to recognize the gentle indicators that your Kairos moment is at hand. The subtle signs of transition. The first and most prominent sign that your season is shifting is a radical change in your desire. For years, you may have operated from a place of desperate striving. You obsessed over the outcome, fixated on the timeline, and felt a suffocating anxiety every time you saw someone else succeed on your digital feeds. But as the waiting room finishes its work in you, that desperation quietly dies. It is replaced by a profound, unshakable contentment in the present moment. You stop begging God for the platform and start thanking Him for the profound peace of the shadows. The frantic need to prove yourself evaporates. You no longer need the door to open to feel validated, because your identity has been entirely secured in the love of the architect. Paradoxically, it is exactly when you no longer need the blessing to survive that you are finally ready to receive it. The second sign is the effortless magnetism of divine alignment. During the delay, everything felt like a battle. You had to force conversations, manipulate networking opportunities, and bang your fists against locked doors just to get a glimpse of progress. But as you transition into your appointed season, the agonizing friction disappears. People, resources, and opportunities begin to naturally gravitate towards you. You find yourself sitting in rooms you did not fight to enter, holding conversations you did not orchestrate, and receiving favor you did not manufacture. The universe stops resisting you and begins to seamlessly accommodate the heavy calling you now carry. The third indicator is a sense of settled, botherless peace. Even if your external circumstances still look chaotic, even if the bank account is not yet full and the title has not yet been officially given, your internal state remains completely unbothered. You possess a quiet, steadfast knowing. The eternal soul whispers that sustained you in the dark now resonate with absolute clarity. You know that your time is approaching, and no external noise can disturb that quiet confidence, crossing the threshold. When that appointed hour finally strikes, you will step across the threshold into your new reality. And it is in this exact moment, looking out over the expansive landscape of your answered prayers, that the sheer brilliance of God's timing will bring you to your knees. You will look at the massive weight of the responsibility you have just been handed. You will see the complexities of the leadership, the spiritual demands of the influence, and the intense pressure of the platform. And suddenly you will realize a terrifying truth. If God had given this to me even 1 year earlier, it would have destroyed me. But because you endured the delay, you are not crushed. You are crossing the threshold with unshakable roots. Like an ancient oak tree that spent decades growing downwards in the dark before it ever expanded its canopy, you are entirely impervious to the shifting winds of public opinion. Because your character was tempered in the forge, you will not be corrupted by the wealth. Because your ego was buried in the excavation, you will not be intoxicated by the applause. You are arriving at your destination fully intact, carrying a massive capacity to bless others without emptying yourself. You did not arrive empty-handed. You brought with you the radical humility, the iron resilience, and the deep, healing empathy that can only be purchased with the currency of time. You did not arrive emotionally burnt out from the frantic sprint of the world. You arrived rested, possessing the biological and spiritual stamina required to build the legacy that will echo for generations, the posture of profound gratitude. As you stand in the light of this new season, look back at the long, lonely road of your waiting room. Adopt a posture of profound, overwhelming gratitude for the delay. Thank the master artist for the chiaroscuro shadows. Thank him for the muted, earthy tones of your obscurity, because you now see how perfectly they frame the brilliant light of your current joy. Thank the architect for the deeply uncomfortable excavation, because you now stand upon a bedrock that cannot be moved. Be aggressively grateful for the closed doors. Bless the rejections that broke your heart in 2026, for they were the divine shields that kept you from walking into rooms where your spirit would have suffocated. Praise God for the times He looked at your tears, heard your desperate pleas, and still had the overwhelming mercy to say, "Not yet." The final affirmation. The illusion of the race is finally broken. The heavy noise of comparison has been permanently silenced. You are right where you are supposed to be. Every agonizing delay, every silent night, and every perceived detour was a meticulous, deliberate stroke of the brush. Your journey was custom-crafted by a creator who refused to compromise the quality of your destiny for the sake of speed. Your arrival is infinitely more impactful, your foundation is immeasurably stronger, and your spirit is beautifully sustainable precisely because it was curated by the slow, loving hand of God. The wait was not a punishment, it was your greatest preparation. Trust the timing, the door is now open. Step forward.